Well, blessed Thursday to you as we come with your daily encouragement. And we are in Dietrich Bonhoeffer's Life Together. And another Bible verse for today, James 4:11 through 12. And we're talking about conflict that happens when we take on leadership. And sometimes that means we find ourselves at crosshairs of where we belong in the body of Christ or what the body of Christ should be doing. And James 4 talks about this. Speak no evil, speak not evil one of another, brothers and sisters. The one who speaks evil of his brother or sister and judges his brother or sister speaks evil of the law and judges the law. But if you judge the law, you are not a doer of the law, but a judge. There is one lawgiver who is able to save and to destroy. Who are you to judge another? James 4:11 through 12. And it says also in Ephesians 4:29, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth, but that which is good to the use and edifying, that it may minister grace unto its hearers. Ephesians 4:29. Bonhoeffer writes, where this discipline of the tongue is practiced, right from the beginning, each individual will make a matchless discovery. He'll be able to cease from constantly scrutinizing the other person, judging them, condemning them, and putting them in a particular place where he can gain ascendancy over him, and thus doing violence to him as a person. Now, he can allow his brother or sister to exist as a completely free person, as God made him to be. His view expands, and his amazement for the first time he sees shining above his brothers and sisters the richness of God's creative glory. God did not make a person as I would have made him. He did not give him to me as a brother or sister for me to dominate and control, but in order that I might find above him the Creator. Now, the other person, in the freedom which he has created, becomes the occasion for joy, whereas before he was only a nuisance and an affliction. God does not will that I should fashion the other person according to the image that seems good to me, that is, in my own image. Rather, he is the very freedom from me, from God, made this person in his image. I can never know beforehand how God's image should appear in others. The image always manifests itself completely new and unique, and form what that comes solely from God's free and sovereign creation. To me, the sight may seem strange, even ungodly, but God creates every person in the likeness of his Son, the crucified. After all, even that image certainly looked strange and ungodly to me before I grasped it. Now, it's a long reading, and essentially what it is saying is that conflict starts when we don't let people do their God created work, when we condemn people for doing the things for which they were created. Now, there are times where leadership and the body of Christ has to make judgment. And those are times that should not be readily run into. I've had times where I've had to say yes and affirm people and just be amazed at how the people can grow. But sometimes I've had to say no. And a lot of times it's not so much I completely say no. I say some things that need to be changed, little artistic or maybe even things around the edges. Now, some people may have to receive this simply as a black and white judgment or affirmation. I have to completely love this person and everything that they do, even in their sinful nature, or I have to completely not love that person in their sinful and sometimes saintly nature. And that's where we run into the problem, I think. Because none of us like to be critiqued, even if we are doing maybe 90% of it right. We still will have trouble with the 10% or something. And it especially gets more difficult if we are starting to challenge each other with half of what we do, or even more. And that's where conflicts can start. But what Jesus or what Bonhoeffer seems to be saying here is that because they have been created, my brothers and sisters have been created in the image of God, we should not rush into that, but we should acknowledge that it is only for a temporary situation. We cannot permanently be the judge of everything that another person does. We can only hold them accountable to being a person created in the image of God. Now, that does not mean that we dare not criticize sometimes or critique some things that people do. If there's a long-standing precedent, or dare I say, a long-standing way of doing things, we can always have that challenge, yes. But we have to ask ourselves, what does God desire of the person or of the event of which we are having a conflict over? And if it is simply to not judge for the sake of peace, then there is something wrong with that on its surface, because what we are to do is to affirm the gift that God has given a person. And sometimes that means, like Proverbs says, in iron sharpening iron, we need to hash it out and have a meeting of the minds. But we dare not think that our whole goal in criticizing someone, our whole goal in conflict, is to simply lord over them for all time and all places. It is also like a parent who will still always be a parent, a mother or father to their child. Even when they let them go, they will still be a parent. But it is teaching us to let go and let people soar and flourish in their specific gifts that God has given them. It is, as Luther says, not a complete freedom, for even in his definition of freedom, Luther says that a person is perfectly free, subject to none, and dutifully a servant bound to everybody. It is in that kind of contrast that we find the difficulty on doing ministry together. And sometimes biting the tongue, and sometimes sharing a critique, not a full criticism, not a full judgment, because as James said in our beginning verse, there is only one lawgiver, and you and I are not that person. We can state what God says, but we cannot fully be the judge. We can warn someone, and we can state what God seems to have said and how it seems to have applied, yes. But ultimately, it is God who is the lawgiver, God who is the creator, and God who has given us the ability to be bound to people and also to be free of people, both at the same time. God bless you today. We trust that these continue to be words of encouragement. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow.